Celeste is a 2D platformer with the female protagonist Madeline, who has set out to climb Celeste Mountain. At the start of the game, the player is taught how to run, jump and climb, all the basics to get you up the mountain, but is shortly thereafter given the ability to dash, which can also be used in mid-air. These basic movements set the stage for the entire game, and thankfully the character controls incredibly well. Running, climbing, jumping and dashing, all of it feels very smooth and responsive. There are a lot of intricacies with the movement too. If you dash into the ground and jump immediately, you keep most, if not all of your speed, and can make a larger jump than would normally otherwise be possible due to the speed increase. These types of advanced maneuvers aren't required to play the game, but utilising techniques like these can make big differences if you are looking to optimise your path through the game for speedruns. On top of the basic moveset that Madeline has, each level introduces a new mechanic to interact with, whether these be moving platforms, gems that recharge the dash in mid-air, or springs to launch the player higher. All of these extra elements add a lot of new depth to the game. The developers have done a great job of creating the levels with lots of unique ways to use these level elements in clever ways that don't get boring before the level is over, and don't get horribly difficult. Each level uses its one mechanic, and then generally the next level will have its own unique mechanic, and there isn't much crossover between the two, which allows each level to have its own distinct feel in terms of gameplay. Later on in the game, the levels get even more creative, mixing and matching some of these elements together to create unique challenges. Now, I mentioned before that the challenges don't get horribly difficult, but of course that depends on how competent you are at platformers. Personally, I've played a whole bunch of them, so I'm likely to be better than someone who's picking this up as their first platformer. But at the same time, I'm no expert, so others are going to have an easier time than me. With this in mind, even on my second playthrough for this review, some levels killed me in excess of 100 times, so it's probably important to note that failure is expected, and even the most seasoned platformers are going to fail a few times in each level whilst exploring them and finding out what they have to offer. That being said, each screen in the game is a new checkpoint, and the death and respawn process takes a second or less, so dying doesn't really set you back very far, nor does it keep you out of the game for very long, which greatly reduces frustration. Now, I imagine that there is a possibility that this game might actually be too hard or time consuming to beat for those that are less skilled, and the developers have acknowledged that by adding in Assist mode. This allows you to customize your experience, making you immune to damage or having extra air dashes, whatever you feel you need in order to enjoy the game, but without making it too easy, unless of course that's what you want. Beating the game on its own is challenging enough, but littered throughout the levels there are strawberries to collect, which do nothing, but striving to collect them all can add some extra challenge to the game, and some extra playtime. But that's not everything Celeste has to offer. There is also a cassette tape to find in each level, which then unlocks a B-side version that offers a far more challenging experience, but focuses primarily on the same mechanics that made that level unique. These B-side levels are hellishly difficult, but completing them provides a huge sense of satisfaction, not just due to overcoming the challenge, but because nailing a series of moves that are required to pull them off feels incredible. There are also hidden puzzles that can be completed for even more collectibles, but I'm not going to talk too much about these, so that those that are interested can hunt for these on their own. Needless to say, from a gameplay standpoint, this simple looking platformer has a lot to offer. The story follows Madeline as she climbs Celeste Mountain. Throughout the climb, she discovers the mountain has some qualities that can bring out people's inner thoughts and feelings. This might sound like some silly fantasy storyline, but what it really does is bring Madeline's mental health into the spotlight in a mature way that I really connected with. In order to bring this story to life, Madeline encounters a few other characters on her journey who have their own perspectives, and it results in a really uplifting story that's handled brilliantly and paced perfectly with the gameplay between. I don't want to say too much more about it because I'm too afraid to give something away, and it really is worth experiencing on your own. The visuals are probably the only aspect that's going to divide certain players. Most of the time you'll be looking at this pixel art that features in the platforming. Now, it does look great, it's poppy, the colours are pretty, but some people just don't like pixel art. In addition, the level select screen has a really nice, low poly aesthetic that realistically could have been 2D too, but I love the look and it brings something else to the game. The story sections are still in pixel art, but the character art has a really nice smooth cartoon style, and some great animations which really capture the characters' personalities with interesting facial expressions. The game's audio really backs the entire feel of the game up. Adding to the speech segments, each character has their own voice, which alters depending on how and what they're saying when delivering the lines. And despite not being fully voiced by voice actors, the detail in how this voice work is done helps bring out the tone and personality of each character perfectly. The music works so well in the game too. Each level has its own track, and the track generally builds up or down depending on what part of the level you're in and the progress that you're making. It's small details like these that just add so much feeling to the game, and it really helps bring the entire thing to life. In summary, Celeste is a masterpiece. I can't fault any aspect. The gameplay is smooth, responsive, and really just a joy to play. The story is interesting, and topics like these aren't covered often. And the music is a joy to listen to. There's so much content in the game that it could easily keep you going for 20 hours or more depending on your skill level and how much you want to do. Do yourself a favour and play this game. I hope you liked this review, and if you have anything to say, let me know in the comments below.